What's on your summertime reading list? How about a scintillating novel critiquing purity culture, patriarchy, and exploring restorative healing? We're exploring these themes and more on Compass. Welcome back to Compass, Finding Spirituality in the Everyday. My name is Ryan Dunn. In this episode, I spoke with Meg Calvin. Meg is a coach, minister, and author who took a little departure from her normal writing projects to offer a new novel called There He Holds Her, which uses story to explore and even push against some powerful pre-existing themes in the church. In our conversation, we talked about patriarchy and purity culture and making spiritual connections through your embodied self as opposed to just dissociating the spiritual and the physical. We got into body mapping, creative inspiration, and a whole lot more. So just a little more background before our conversation. The book weaves together the stories of a mother and daughter who are separated by 4 decades. So through the novel, we find both learning to really trust their bodies and honor their desires and break free from a lot of religious conditioning that taught them as women to shrink. Heity is the contemporary character. She's a pastor in our, up-to-date age. But we also kick back to the 1970s to meet Heity's mother, Vivian. And I think that background might help a little bit going into our conversation. If conversations like this are meaningful for you, well, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button wherever it is that you're listening to this Compass podcast. We really, really appreciate that. And let's get into it. We're going to meet Meg Calvin here on Compass. Meg Calvin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the Compass podcast. How goes it with your soul today?
My soul is very filled, very filled. Last day of my daughter's 5th grade, last day of elementary school. So I'm pausing and celebrating the changing seasons and letting all the feelings happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of changing seasons, the impetus for our conversation here is a book that you have coming out called There He Holds Her. And it's a little bit of a change in directions for you, and that the past books that you've written have all been nonfiction. You work in really kind of concrete ways with ministry work and coaching and conference presentations. And now you're releasing this novel. Why the departure, so to speak, into the world of noveling?
Yes. I have experienced the best art, and I consider books are art.
Mm-hmm.
They serve others best when they first served the one who released them, co-created it. And so I selfishly wrote the book that I want to read.
Okay.
And so I combine my favorite genres of spirituality and theology with this sweeping, swoon-worthy romantic book. And then the second reason was I thought about my fellow high-achieving Christian, overcommitted holy roller, whether they're on staff or not, they are on all the boards. And they have read all the Enneagram books and self-care books and the life hack team dynamic books, all the books, paddled the canoes. They've done all the things. And I thought, what if self-care could be entertaining? What if fiction could be a healing modality and a self-care book for these high achievers in the spiritual space? So that's the book I wrote.
Oh, very thoughtful of you. What did you learn about yourself in doing this?
I learned I have a deep love for dialogue. In crafting that, I already had a deep inner knowing that I did love that because I've watched certain movies and I study them in a sense and study the craft of dialogue and I've been in an improv troupe for 4 years now, and so I have a deep love for creating transformational dialogue. And so when I started this book, 3 years ago, I had doubts of, can I do this well? Can I do this? But just returning and trusting that that old saying, follow your bliss, the deep love and obsession I had with crafting transformational dialogue that carried a lot of weight with less words when needed. And
yeah.
So I definitely learned that. about myself for sure, that there's power. I'm going to land the plane soon, I promise.
No
I
worries.
learned there I learned there is power in, yeah, it's very meta right now. This question you're asking me is very meta
Mm,
to the book itself. In I learned that even when there is doubt of am I qualified to answer this call, that one can find great confidence in what lights them up, what they're very curious about all the time, which that some dialogue has always been that way to me, and just trust that God put that desire there first. And all throughout the book, there is this undercurrent of this quote by Dr. H. Emily Cady. She kind of was a huge, not kind of, she was a huge metaphysical practitioner, Christian leader in the unity movement in the early 1900s. And she teaches that desire is God knocking on the door of your heart. And this book for me was living that out every day. Just even when the self-doubt would creep in, just returning to this desire wouldn't be here to write this weird transformational book if God didn't put it there first. And I can trust that I'm qualified because of that.
okay. Hmm. Well, it you've mentioned it's a book of healing and healing modalities, and healing can't really occur until you name the hurt, right?
Right,
And
right.
so there are several points of, I guess, critique offered through the book, and in that it's naming the hurts that then are calling people towards healing. And one of the critiques offered in the book is against something called purity culture, which likely our listener has been exposed to, but maybe has it hasn't been named for them. So can you describe like what purity culture is for us, and maybe even offer a couple of reasons why this needs to be critiqued?
Yes, it's so interesting as a millennial. When I visit with young women in Generation Z, right below me, they have never heard of this word. And
Yeah.
there's,
Huh.
as you know, I'm sure as a pastor, you know as well. I turned 40 this June. So in Texas, where I was raised, purity culture, we kiss dating goodbye along with the
Yeah.
book. And I'm, as you know, I'm so thankful that documentary
No.
came out, and I wish
Mhm.
him all the healing and all the things, of course. And so what is purity culture? So purity culture is the evangelical movement that tied a woman's spiritual worth directly to her sexual purity. Of course, I'm speaking as a woman. From my journey, my experience, virginity pledges. I had the ring. Modesty rules, intense shame around the body, and why it needs to be critiqued is at a deep level. When you teach anyone to turn off their sexual desire entirely, you teach them to turn off their body
Mm,
entirely. And when we can't trust our bodies, regardless of sex, gender, orientation, when we can't trust our bodies, we end up subconsciously not trusting any of our desires as safe. And what grows in that void, what I explored in the archetypes and these characters in the novel, is perfectionism grows, people pleasing grows, and there's this belief that the desire itself is dangerous and separate from God. And so
mm.
that has been my experience with purity culture and other people that I speak with that went through youth group at that time in the late 90s, early aughts.
Yeah. Um, there seems to be really historically across Christianity this theological line of thinking that the body is in itself sinful, right? That we need to detach from the body. Um, and certainly one of your characters, Heity, is wrestling with this a little bit. So a person who is very grounded in intellect. She's a pastor. Um, and then challenges this notion. She learns to sit and encounter herself in her physical being, right? Have you had a similar experience in terms of awakening to the communication of the body?
Yes, 100%. And I have a United Methodist Church to thank for that.
Okay.
Circa 2014, I went to a somatic Enneagram retreat in Houston at a Methodist church with my grandmother. And at that retreat, the facilitator did what great facilitators do and got me back into my body, and through exercises cried more than I humanly thought was possible. And it was at that moment that she asked me, Meg, if what is Now I have to pause because I know people on your show are probably aware of the Enneagram. Is that a right assumption to make?
Yeah. It gets dropped just about every other episode, I
Right.
think. Yeah.
It's so true. I used to call it the Myers-Briggs invented by Richard Rohr.
Mm.
But I know it's not that. Shout out to Helen Palmer. It's not Richard. Anyway, so I am an Enneagram 3 with a 2 wing, and which made me a very charismatic preacher. So when I was 13, I started preaching and teaching and singing. I had missionary grandparents in the Methodist Church, and they would carry me around like an ecclesial show pony at conferences and churches. God did lots of good things. And I would preach and I would sing, and simultaneously, subconsciously, I was equating unconditional love with applause. And I began my nervous system, obviously, as I'm sure lots of pastors can attest to, my nervous system began wiring the story in my being that I was only worthy of love if I was preaching and singing and teaching and leading in ministry.
Mm.
And so I did. I was on a church staff at the age of 17. Went to seminary, stepped away to start my writing coaching business in 2020. And so at this retreat, I wouldn't have left ministry and started writing as much as I did unless this moment happened. And so the facilitator asked me, as the only 3 at this Enneagram retreat, by the way, which was quite funny, about 50
It's
people,
interesting. Yeah.
she said, Meg, if you could do anything all day and no one was around to applaud you and no one was around to see that you even did it, but it would still bring you joy, but no one would know you did it. What is that thing that you could do all day and lose track of time and be in flow? And I knew instantly it was my favorite part of ministry, and that was the writing part. And so that moment got me back into my body in a very healing way. And then, similar to Heity finds her biological father, and I had the joy of doing that too 4 years ago after we were separated when I was 3. We reconnected when I was 36. And the healing that occurs from that experience, and how we always hear that trauma is stored in the body, and a lot smarter people can talk about that than I can, but how my body felt so safe around my biological father when we reconnected. It was so beautiful, the truth that was in those first 3 years of life with him, and that my body remembered it. It was this magnetic pool of safety and love. And so the past 4 years have been me diving in even deeper into listening to how my emotions show up in my body and how memories show up in my body. So yes, Heity and me, our spiritual and emotional arcs are very much identical, although she doesn't leave the ministry as I did to start my business.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. It's revealing when you start reading about Heity talking about things like CEUs and
Yes.
continuing education units and that kind of thing. Like, oh, there's some real life experience here. Like,
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
yeah. Are there practices that you employ now that kind of help you connect, I guess the emotional or spiritual with the body?
Yes.
Or vice versa, I guess. Sometimes like you talk about trauma being stored in the body, like maybe like are there practices that you use for listening to the body that reveal something then to the head?
Okay. So emotional body mapping, it was a groundbreaking 2014 research led by Dr. Lori Newman May at Alto University. And what they found by doing this study over hundreds of volunteers is that regardless of gender, orientation, ethnicity, what have you, all the things that make us different as humans, there are identical physical sensations to every emotion. And so shame shows up the same way physically, and sadness. And the chart, the image, just looking at the image alone of where there is heat happening, where there is heat in the jaw and the forehead when there's anger, where there is the body's totally blue in a moment of depression, there's no heat. It's this study alone, it was extremely helpful to me 6 years ago. And I've loved sharing it with others when we, especially those in ministerial settings, most of the time, we have great empathy for our parishioners. We have great empathy for our clients. And because of that, is probably where I'm going with this, it's hard to separate their feelings and their preferences from our feelings and our preferences.
Yeah.
And like Heity or her mom Vivian in the book, because of past trauma that was done to our body, we fled to our brain to be safe, and we had this intellectual fortress up, and so we're a brain on a stick every day of our lives, and so from either of those places, it is hard to know, how do I feel about this invitation to be on my kid's board at her school, or how do I feel about this person that's asked me on this date? And so emotional body mapping is massively helpful to help people begin to notice, before the part of my brain that puts words to things, labels or makes a meaning or rationalizes this experience, my body's already done the work for me, and I can trust it. And so sitting in the question of, my nose just crinkled when someone invited me to be on that board. Of course, I'm speaking from my own experience.
Right.
There's so much disgust there to work on a board for me. I'd rather just drive a kid somewhere, like donate money or help. Could I move heavy tables? And so starting to notice, how does my body respond to opportunities? And then not judging it, not making up a should story. Oh, I should want to go on that play date with that family, when really just listening to the body first. So that tool is massively helpful. And then the other tool is one that our heritage has been doing for eons, and it's not new age or metaphysical. It's in our roots as Christians. That is practice of contemplation and contemplative grounding. And so I love using apps like the Insight Timer, doing breath work or grounding exercises. These quieting moments where the body can speak and we can notice. And so again, I love, one of my favorite things to do is reintroduce, and I have a feeling you might relate to this. I love introducing people to saints of our faith, like Hilda von Bingen. Did I say that right? Bingen?
As far as I know, say it with purpose, and we're all like, yep, that's how you say it.
Say it with a German accent in her case. Yes, like her deep connection to the earth and to trees. And it's like, that is, we have so many great resources in our own heritage, and we also celebrate the other heritage. And then the last step, which for high achievers is extremely hard sometimes, and they're like, Meg, what do you mean? You want me to go get in a go-kart and run and race really fast? The other practice to get you back in your body, to listen to its wisdom, is, of course, play.
Oh, okay.
Play. And that's different for every person. For some, it is fine motor skills, making jewelry. For others, it is improv, like myself. For one client I had, she was a doctor, and she wanted to race go-karts. And so we made it a weekly routine that she would go and be as out of control and chaotic and fast as possible. And it was in those moments of play that we remember, oh, this is what deep gladness feels like.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that image of a doctor. That's like, can't wait to get on the go-kart track. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to touch on back on the body mapping a little bit. When you talk about feeling heat in the jaw or in the shoulders, is there a way that we can kind of pinpoint that on our own?
100%. Yes. So I'm looking at the image right now, and it will not feel like heat, from my experience, others I've worked with. It will not feel like heat or cold. It could. There's a physical sensation that you feel. Okay. And like you said at the start of our time together, one of the first steps to heal something or forgive something is to name it. And when the body mapping came into my life, I had just lost someone who I loved deeply, and she had crossed over. And the client's book I was working on, their childhoods were very similar in a traumatic way, and I couldn't open the manuscript without my body shaking. I was so triggered, to use that buzzword, but it is authentically what happened. And as I was working with my coach that introduced me to this, I was asked, let's just name the feeling. And I said, I'm sad. I must be sad that this person has died and that no one protected her when she was a kid. And now this client, in an eerie way, her memoir is very similar. I'm very sad. And then my coach asked me, where do you feel that sadness? And I said, oh, it's in my jaw is so tight, and my forehead is really, it's just tense, and it's just sadness. And my coach asked me, we started doing work with this body mapping. When I looked at the body map, I saw, oh, these physical sensations aren't that of sadness. That would be more in the chest for most people. There's a louder emotion here that I'm not naming, and I've never been allowed to name. And that was anger. And so then when I named that, of course I was sad she died. And what was a louder emotion that was my block with serving this client was I was angry at her parents for not protecting her. But in my family system, I wasn't allowed to be angry at them because they did so much for me. And so once I named that anger and gave it a sound and gave it a somatic, a body movement, punching a pillow, punching a bag, going to a rage room, throwing a fit in a healthy way, and moving that anger, I was able to actually serve that writing client by being in her memoir, in the pits of her pain with her. And so that made me a believer in this work of this emotional body mapping, just noticing physical sensations when opportunities come my way, when people come my way. And was that a helpful response?
Yeah. I'm curious, is there a way to kind of inventory, like, is your...
Oh, mm-hmm. Did I cut you off? Okay. To inventory. So is the question any given moment checking in on your body?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
Is there a practice for kind of leading us through a sense of mindful intention about what our body is speaking to us?
I would imagine. I'm like, such a easy question you're asking.
I mean, maybe it is just to have that intention. And maybe I'm making it too complicated.
No,
but it's
no,
just
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
To sit and feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I've always used it with people I serve when they have a situation where there's a should story coming up. I know I should go see this person. I know I should be on that board. I know I should. And then when we quiet the mind, we do a breathing exercise together, and then we notice. So yes, I'm right there with you. And then we notice when we think about this opportunity or this person that is come into our life, what have you, what physical sensation is happening in the body. And it's been was that helpful?
Yes.
And then going from there. Oh, that's weird. I have goosebumps on the back of my arms, which is shame. Why do I feel shame about telling the school no that I won't bring cookies or whatever? And so then checking in, is that narrative serving me? Is it not serving me? It's not serving me. So body, it's okay. You don't need to feel shame around this. I love you. I see you. You can say no. And yeah.
Well, speaking of shame, one of the harms that the book addresses is it's really like the patriarchal system, especially as it's expressed in ministry. And I say, shame because, I have a sense of guilt in participating in that. And what it looks like expressed in your book is that it can create a sense of competition for women. So what alternative to the competitive patriarchal model are you presenting in the book?
Yeah. We meet Heity, and she thinks that the way to go about being a minister is being in the boys' club, even though I always think of that. Did you ever see the show Parks and Rec?
Yes.
Yeah. And that hilarious scene might be the first 4 episodes. My husband and I have watched that show so many times, but Leslie is going to go in the courtyard and break up the boys' club, and she goes out there. Do you remember that scene?
Yes. It's been a long time, but
And she goes out there, and they're like, "Hey, Leslie, what's up?" They welcome her. There's no boys' club, and so I say it what I'm about to say, knowing that that is also true. Dualism. I hold both to be true. For some reason, we'll have to read the book to find out, Heity has this belief that she needs to view everything that makes her a woman, her female anatomy and whatnot. She views it as a liability.
Mm.
And we see her, she's more curvy, substantial, but she wears really tight constrictive sports bras. She wears big, heavy scarves. She's literally hiding everything that would be considered a liability so she can be one of the guys. And we meet her friend, Reverend Barbara, who works for the AME Church. And Barbara does things differently. Barbara, hopefully in a way that's not didactic or preachy, as some beta readers told me the very first draft was. Thank you, beta readers. Barbara shows this new-ish research, and she lives from it, and that's rooted in the works of Dr. Elisa Vitti, who speaks about the science of infradian rhythms. And what that means is that people with ovaries, we have different neurological superpowers every week because of our hormones. And in a very bizarre way, Jesus came to me in a dream, not in a bizarre way. That is dream interpretation is part of our faith. I have to remind myself of that I'm afraid someone will judge me as woo-woo. But oh my goodness, God speaks through dreams. It's all over the canonized scripture. And Jesus came to me and said, bring the blood back in the church. I was like, Jesus, that is provocative. What do you... I don't know if I can do that. And so how I answered that call was through Barbara's character. So we see Barbara, who is a pastor, leaning into, because every week, because of hormones, I have different neurological superpowers. 1 week is great for big ideas. 1 week is great for networking. 1 is great for detail work. 1 is great for evaluation and rest. And so we see Barbara's character excited to go to the CEU event to network for some funds her church needs because she's ovulating. And when women are ovulating, they are very charming. They're great negotiators. They're great conversationalists. It's a superpower that Elisa Vitti's work is turning us all on to. And so here we have a female pastor in Heity who's shut all that down. Her body's a machine, and it's also a liability because she's a woman and she needs to be a brain on a stick. And then we see Barbara also being a female pastor who is leaning into the superpowers of her hormones. And so Heity's arc is moving from hiding her femininity to inhabiting it. And I also bring in the novel, of course, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and all the OG scholars like Karen King and Cynthia Bourgeault and Margaret Starbird. And so they also reclaim this feminine face of Christian leadership that was buried in caves and jars and German antique stores for centuries.
Well, in looking back on the whole process now of both writing this book, going through the beta reading, and and being ready now to release it, what's the good news that you've learned through this? What's hopeful?
Yes. There is a resounding passage that occurs in the book is from Joel, and I should remember the exact address, but I do not. And God speaks over Heity, I will restore to you the years the locusts have eaten. And so in this, there is so much hope for any time lost was not time wasted. And God is giving, God is a God of restoration. And so it asks the question to readers, and I've heard back from men and women both, and which was so exciting. It's so exciting to hear from both, that this book invited them to sit in the question of, am I filling my life with religious busyness in the name of piety or performance-based faith? Or am I filling my life with authentic, spiritually healing practices? And that's the biggest question this book asks. And so if not everyone's open or ready for that question. My friend Jamal, who was also in ministry, said, Meg, this book is a spiritual portal that not everyone's ready for. And I received that as a great compliment and also a reality check that not everyone's ready for this book. And that is okay. But for those that are ready, if you're a people pleaser, it's going to give you permission to want what you want, that God gave you those desires. If you wonder if you've waited too long on to act towards something, just know it's never too late to heal a relationship, to co-create with God, that idea He put on your heart when you were 17, like it's never too late. If you are one that you feel unseen in your own story, this is a mirror to your unlived story. And then lastly, if you are a person who was taught that your body is a problem, this is a path back into your body.
Well, Meg, this has been helpful. It's been fun. For folks who want to learn more about both you, your work, and also the book, where are they going to find that stuff?
Yes. So there are tons of pre-order bonuses that I'm giving away so the book officially comes out June 9th, but if you order before then, you get lots of goodies. And what I mean by goodies is I offer a dream interpretation training, a Spotify playlist that follows the book. There's free coaching with me, whether it's book coaching or a marketing coaching. I also offer, with this novel, there is a women's community called The Treasure Within that I steward. And that helps women come back home to their bodies, listening to their bodies, reclaim their desires as safe, remember and strengthen their God-given intuitive abilities, which we'll need a whole other episode for that, and how those spiritual gifts are a part of our Christian faith, and we see them in Scripture. And so with pre-orders, there's also an opportunity to join the Treasure Within, this women's community that we follow the novel as part of our curriculum. So all of that is at megcalvin.com. And then of course I'm on all the social media networks. Yeah.
All right. Well, Meg, once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
My honor. Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. So what are you taking away from this conversation? If you're ready to add There He Holds Her to your summertime reading list, well, check out megcalvin.com. Thanks for taking this journey with us. We also want to extend a big special thank you to the team at United Methodist Communications for making this podcast possible. If you haven't already, again, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review Compass on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps others find us and join the conversation. And again, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks' time. Peace.